Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for giving so much to our country. I'd like to use my first couple of minutes, Madam Chair, talking to you about industrial loan companies. You know what those are. They're basically banks, but they're not regulated like other banks. They're authorized at the state level. Some of our largest companies are starting to use these industrial loan companies to take deposits, for example. And I think competition is good. Competition is a moral good. But I worry that they're not regulated like the other banks. And I have a bill called the Eliminating Corporate Shadow Banking Act, just to make sure that these industrial loan companies are on a level playing field with everybody else and are properly regulated, you know. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Could you give me about a minute of your thoughts on that?
I have not had an opportunity to take a look at your bill, and as a former staffer,
It's a good one, just trust me.
I know your staff support, and I believe it's probably a good bill. So Congress gave us authorities to regulate ILCs, and frankly, as we look at the ILCs, we only have a couple of dozen ILCs in existence right now. The ILCs of the past are looking different than probably, than the applications we're getting at this point in time. That is true. At the depository institution level, Congress gave us ample authorities to regulate ILCs. And when
But they're not regulated the same as banks, is that correct?
They have a different regulatory structure. So we regulate a depository institution that
Why
collects
don't they
deposits.
just have the same regulatory structure?
From the
Wouldn't it save money if you did them all the same way, just economies of scale?
So from the perspective of the depository institution, the ILC is regulated the same way as a bank. In fact, when Congress gave us authorities to approve deposit insurance for ILCs, it gave us the same statutory standards as it did to banks.
Let's talk further about this.
Sure.
I disagree with you on that. I don't think they're regulated the same, and I just don't understand why everybody's not treated the same. I want to go to Chairman Quarles for a second. I think our community banks are doing very well, in large part, or in substantial part, as a result of the work of most of the members of this committee when we passed Senate Bill 2155. I am still concerned about our large banks. We all remember 2008. I mean, from my standpoint, in 2008, the leadership of some of our largest banks took their banks to hell, and government rode shotgun. They haven't been tested. Our economy is much better, and it is still healthy, but we know at some point we'll have a recession. I think had we not passed our Jobs and Tax Cuts Act, we would be in a recession now. I think it was Buffett who said you don't know who's swimming naked until the tide goes out. So do we still, Mr. Chair, do we still have banks that are too big to fail?
I think that the responses, I think that the regulatory response, the post-crisis body of regulation will have given future regulators in the event of stress at a large institution many more options than they had before to resolve that institution or to take other actions rather than bailing them out.
Do you think we still have banks that are too big to fail?
I think that the way that I look at that question is, will regulators in the future, will the government in the future, when it's faced with stress at a large institution, have an option other than providing support for the continued life of that institution? I think those options will exist, yes.
Will one of those options be come to Congress and we appropriate a bucket load of money to bail them out?
I hope that doesn't happen. The purpose of the framework is to ensure that regulators have options so they don't do that, but unless I'm one of them, I won't be able to control their future actions as to what they might ask for. I would say now, however, that if they come up and ask you for that, you should be aware that they will have many other options in front of them than they had at the time of the last crisis.
Okay. Thank you. Chairman Hood, if you have a few minutes afterwards, I'd like to get a photo. Be okay?